from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy Wednesday to everybody. If you want to join our late night national town hall conversation, feel free to give us a call, 833-482-5337-8334 Valdez. And the Republican presidential debate is going on tonight, University of Alabama, and the participants, as usual, are, one going after the next. We'll get into that in a little bit. Tonight, we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. I want to talk about some of the Ukraine and Israel aid. We'll do some post-debate analysis a little bit as well. Plus, there's a crazy story about the folks that push Satanism, and they've now latched on to abortion as well. We'll get into this whole satanic abortion thing. It's kind of crazy. And, of course, we are also going to have a discussion on the fact that Biden wants to leave the borders open, even though he says no. But it looks like they're trying to create an actual merger, right? From like Guatemala to Texas. So we'll talk about that supply chain. And, of course, we're going to talk a little bit more about what's happening with the Girl Scouts. Apparently, they've gone beyond woke. We'll talk about that as well. And, of course, we have some debate stuff going on. And speaking of the debate, which is on right now, I don't think you're missing a ton, but one of the clips that I've got is Vivek Ramaswamy. And as usual, he decides to go after everybody on stage. Listen to this.
Nikki, you were bankrupt when you left the UN. After you left the UN, you became a military contractor. You actually started joining service on the board of Boeing, whose back you scratched for a very long time, and then gave foreign multinational speeches like Hillary Clinton is, and now you're a multimillionaire. That math does not add up. It adds up to the fact that you are corrupt.
Right. This is Vivek. He's been blasting her. And listen, he makes half the points he makes are really solid points. The other half, I won't even say half. I just feel like it's, all sizzle, no steak, if I'm allowed to say that. I want to know what he plans to do. I think his criticism is eloquent and it's great, and he's great at it. But we've got to know more, right? We've got to know what you're bringing to the table. I don't think anybody's really rooting for Nikki Haley. I think she's just got some establishment support. I don't know that that's enough to win anything, but we shall see. Now, she's trailing behind Trump, who doesn't even show up to these things. But my former boss, Governor Chris Christie, he decided to call out Vivek Ramaswamy for his debate tactics. Listen to this.
You do this at every debate.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you. Okay? You say this.
About how you want to send our kids to die.
You do this at every debate. You go out on the stump and you say something. All of us see it on video. We confront you out on the debate stage. You say you didn't say it, and then you back away. And I want to say
exactly what I said, Chris.
I'm not done yet.
Well, this is
now look.
This is nonsense. This man is spewing. This man is spewing nonsense.
Let me tell you something. This is the fourth debate that you would be voted in the first 20 minutes as the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So shut up for a little while.
I'm going to respond to that.
And listen, that's saying a lot with the other people that are on that stage, right? To win such a title, the most obnoxious blowhard. I'm pretty sure I was in the running for that once. But anyway, it doesn't end there. Then we've got Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and he says that he talks about his ideas, like actual ideas, to work with Israel, to work with the conflict with Hamas. Cut 28. Listen to this.
Hamas wants nothing less than a second Holocaust. They would wipe off every single Jew off the map. They would destroy the state of Israel if we could. Joe Biden will say they support Israel, and then they do nothing but try to kneecap them every step of the way. You should not try to direct their war effort. We should work together with them so that they can bring Hamas to heel. Look, I served in Iraq back in the day. I'm the only one running for president that served in the military. I understand that part of the world. It's not the best part of the world. We do have troops there that Biden is leaving basically as sitting ducks. And you have the Iranians that are attacking these troops, and he's responding with basically pinpricks. If you harm an American service member, you're going to have hell to pay when I'm president. We are not going to let our troops be sitting ducks. We also need to look at what's the underlying problem here. Iran. Biden is doing nothing to bring Iran to account. You got to turn the screws on them. Don't let them have any oil revenue. The money they get, they send to Hamas, they send to Hezbollah, and they foment jihad throughout the Middle East. So Biden has empowered Iran just like he's empowered other adversaries. We stand with Israel. They're our best ally in the Middle East. We have a unique relationship with them, and you will see a strong relationship when I'm the president of the United States.
But would you send American...
So there we got Governor DeSantis again putting some ideas out there, and he's yet to come on this program. We've had others, even Perry Johnson, Donald Trump, lots of people that were considering a run. Vivek Ramaswamy, a lot of people came on the show, but Governor Ron DeSantis has been very elusive. I'm not sure what exactly he is. I'm not going to say afraid. I don't think he's afraid of the show. Maybe he is. Who knows? If you guys know Ron DeSantis or you want to tag him at Ron DeSantis and ask him, what's going on? Why don't you come on the show? I don't think I would give him an extraordinarily hard time. I think I'd just ask some questions. But either way, we haven't heard much from him on this show, but I thought his responses there were worth listening to, right? He's the only one that's not beating up everybody else. He's actually putting out a plan. And I wanted to end off with one more cheap shot. Here we go. Cut number 26. This is Vivek Ramaswamy taking one more swipe at Nikki Haley.
We're marching towards fascism under Biden. Jack Smith has subpoenaed every last retweet that someone has issued from Donald Trump in the year 2020. The only person more fascist than the Biden regime now is Nikki Haley, who thinks the government should identify every one of those individuals with an ID. That is not freedom. That is fascism. And she should come nowhere near the levers of power, let alone the White House.
There you go. So he continues to rail against Nikki Haley. And I think that, listen, I get it. Her numbers are polling better than everybody else's. So she's the person to take out. But I think that's only because there's been that, Koch brothers infusion and whatnot from Republicans and Democrats that don't want to see Trump win. So we'll continue to see how it plays out. I'll keep you up to speed on that. Plus, we're going to have a little bit of a discussion on that, get some opinions from Ashley Hayak. She is the executive director at America First Works. And we're going to talk about that, the debate over Israeli aid, Ukrainian aid, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Amigos, Rich Valdez here with you straight till 1 a.m. Eastern time. And I mentioned that our guest, Ashley Hayak, Executive Director of America First Works, is joining us. And Ashley Hayak, welcome to the program. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I wanted to talk about this stuff because we had a little bit of a back and forth about something that, I would have normally described it that way, but it was legit put in print on the Cosmopolitan site, a satanic abortion. And there's like a whole article describing how a satanic abortion ceremony even works. Tell us more about this.
Yes, last week we saw Cosmo. Well, there was an article and then multiple graphics, and I think they posted it a couple times too, how to get a satanic abortion. And as a Christian, as a Catholic, this mocks the sanctity of motherhood and Christianity. And it's disgusting that a mainstream magazine, now this magazine has millions of viewers and readers from around the world, and they target young women, that they would serve this type of content to young women. I can't, it's mind-boggling to me that anybody would think that this is a good idea, and it's not where the majority of Americans or even the majority of women are. I come from a place where a majority of women who have common knowledge, the majority of women who are faced with an unplanned pregnancy, they don't want to choose abortion, right? But the idea of promoting a satanic abortion is just evil. And I will never let my daughters, I have 4, near that magazine or publication.
Ashley Hayak, this is really one of those things that I think is, I don't like it, but I'm with you here. Why would such a popular fashion magazine like Cosmopolitan decide to put an article out there about having a satanic-themed abortion? Now, it was specific when it talked about it being a ceremonial thing, kind of like a service that they were providing, and it joked with saying, Sam Alito's mom, Satanic Abortion Clinic, trying to insult Justice Alito. But it goes on, and it talks about lots of different things. And I just, when I think about it, I think, who are they selling here? Now, I think part of the problem here is that maybe you and I and others that are listening tend to think that we may not like abortion, and perhaps we might be of the opinion that it shouldn't be a thing, but we do realize it's a state level thing, and people are doing it anyway. So I think that's what I think that's a mainstream view. But the bigger issue at hand, I think that's not the case when you go down to younger than 35. I think even younger than 40, perhaps. I think a lot of people younger than 40 or even 35, they feel like, oh, no, absolutely, you should have abortions. Abortions are legit, like breathing. If a woman can't have an abortion, it's a sin, right? And I've met a ton of people like that. I've met some very conservative people like that. They're just they're not very attuned to their faith. But this is my point. I think faith has dissipated in a very big way, and amongst Republicans, amongst conservatives, you have a lot of people that say that the 2022 midterm election was tight because of abortion. Do you think that I'm wrong in my thinking? Do you think that I might be right? What's your take?
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one, we are in a culture crisis right now. No doubt about it. If somebody wants to have something like that done, if someone is celebrating it like the left is, that is a major problem. It should not be tolerated in our culture. Unfortunately, it is. And I think part of the reason is because the left views this and maybe even some of the pro-choice Republicans believe that it is a right. And when you try and take a right, they view as a right away, they become very angry. Now, the problem at this point is that we have become a country that is in line with China and North Korea when it comes to abortion policy. It's hard to imagine that the United States of America, we would mirror the same unhumanitarian policies of those regimes. But unfortunately, that's what the left's extreme late-term abortion stance is. And then you add that other level with the satanic ritual. They're trying to make it seem cool. They're trying to make it seem, oh, this is an edgy thing to do. You see at the award shows now how they have, the artists. I don't even watch them anymore. I used to watch them, and now they're just so horrific, but they dress like Satan. And you saw it at Target this year, when they had all of even recently with the Christmas decorations dressed up, or decor is satanic themed. It's a crisis. And so I think it's just the brainwashing by the radical left of pushing this notion that this is a right. And it's not a right to take someone's life away, but also conservatives have just really kind of missed the mark on some of the framing around this. A couple things in 2022 and also in 2023, the left has done a really phenomenal job of taking a singular issue and using it to motivate their base and to use that issue to drive turnout. Hogan Gidley uses the phrase that conservatives are like the dog that caught the car. When Roe v. Wade was finally overturned after years and years and years of trying to get that exact result, we weren't prepared for it. And we didn't have a solution, and we didn't have a plan. And so that's where conservatives have got to start figuring this out.
And they
so
did, right? They had the plan of saying, oh, my gosh, so-and-so is going to need an abortion in one state and have to go to the other state, and you're going to kill her. Trump is killing so-and-so, or Trump is killing a little girl that was raped. And it was horrific, and the media had their back. And this is where everything you're saying rings true. You've got Cosmopolitan magazine, you've got CNN, you've got all the networks, the newspapers, the New York Times, you name it, the classroom, the college campus. Show me a place, half of the church, show me a place where they're not embracing, accepting, and promoting abortion. It's difficult. So even if we had a plan, it'd be difficult, I think, to get our message out. Yes? No?
Well, and it's also part of actually a bigger plan, too. Yesterday, FBI Director Christopher Wray testified at Congress, and they've been going after the Catholic churches, right? We know that they've been going after pro-life advocates and pregnancy resource centers. So this is a piece of a much larger plan to villainize pro-life activists, to villainize, the religious base who are traditionalists, right? That's the word that they used in their memo. So this is all just part of a plan, and they're very organized. So we have to remind people that the left, every Democrat senator except for one, voted in favor of an abortion in 7th, 8th, 9th month of pregnancy when a baby can feel pain. And every single senator, especially going into 2024, needs to answer the question, are you okay with that? Because that's what you voted for. Because I will tell you, the majority of Americans do not agree with that on any level.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think this is what we need to push. And I want to talk a little bit more about this villainization of the Catholics and Christopher Wray's testimony as soon as we come back. Folks, we're on with Ashley Hayak. She is the executive director of America First Works, and that's AmericaFirstWorks.com. And we're going to continue straight ahead with her. Ashley, let everybody know how they could get you on social media.
It's pretty simple. It's at Ashley Hayek, Hayek, or at America First Works.
Outstanding. And folks, as always, whenever we have these interviews, you can listen to the replay of this anytime and share it with folks. If you want people to hear what Ashley had to say, just go to richvaldesamericaatnight.com and you can share it for free. You don't have to subscribe or anything like that. So you can go ahead and do that. Straight ahead, we're going to discuss the villainization and the attack on Catholics through the weaponization of the FBI. We'll hear that testimony from FBI Director Christopher Wray and get some reaction to that. So don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. It's Rich Valdez, America at Night. And if you want to join the conversation, the phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. We'll be right back.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
But I can tell you that we don't investigate people for their exercise of their constitutionally protected religious expression. That particular intelligence product is something that as soon as I saw it, I was aghast. I had it withdrawn.
Really? You were aghast?
I was.
Oh, really?
Yes,
and what have you done about it? Did you fire the people who wrote it?
No, I had it withdrawn.
Have you fired anybody involved in it?
Senator, if you would give me a chance to answer
That's a yes
question.
or a no. It's not hard. Have you fired anyone involved in the writing of that outrageous memo about which, frankly, you've repeatedly misled the public? Yes or no?
The individuals involved in that
Have you
product
fired anyone?
Just a minute. Were not found to have engaged in any intentional or bad faith conduct. And in fact, Senator, A number of the individuals involved in writing that product in the Richmond office were themselves Catholics. So the notion that they were targeting their own faith
so they
is
have a
nonsense.
get out of jail free card. I see. So you're immune and they're immune. So we shouldn't ask questions about it. You haven't done a darn thing. You haven't fired anybody.
Okay, so there you go, Senator Josh Hawley having a little bit of a throwdown there with Christopher Wray, FBI director. Our guest, Ashley Hayak, is there, and she's standing by. Ashley, what was your initial reaction to hearing what Christopher Wray had to say?
You know what's funny is I heard a quote, "The devil knows scriptures," right? So Christopher Wray talks about the other agents and, they're Catholics, they're Christians, but they're literally persecuting and prosecuting Catholics. And the other thing that actually made me really think about was that let's go back to the first Trump impeachment. The FISA warrant was narrated from a news source, Yahoo News, to investigate Donald Trump. In this case, the FBI was able to generate the memo from news sources as well. So that memo that they're talking about, that those FBI agents had put together out of their Richmond office, relied on sources like The Atlantic, which is a super liberal publication, the Salon, and then also the Southern Poverty Law Center Group, a total radical organization. So when Donald Trump said, "They're coming after you, I'm just in the way," this example is exactly what he was talking about. Donald Trump is a threat to the establishment, and now what the FBI called the so-called traditionalist Catholic churches are a threat to establishment because the Catholic churches, the conservative ones, are trying to protect life, and they are trying to secure the nuclear family. But remember, it's not just the Catholics, it's the parents at the school board meetings. It's the Army veteran at the rally. It's the dad who is praying outside of the pro-life center. It's today them that they're going after. Tomorrow, it's going to be the evangelicals. It's going to be the Jewish Americans. Shoot, we're seeing some of that today, right? Dissent, push back against the government. They will come for you. This is Marxism, and this is totally the policies of Joe Biden, of his DOJ, and the FBI. Christopher Wray, in my opinion, is the top general for Joe Biden and his agenda. And the bottom line is, if we lose freedom of speech, if we lose freedom of religion, we will lose our country.
I think you're spot on. And I feel like this is it's such an ugly thing. I don't know what word to use here because it really is something where I feel more deflated than I do angered. And maybe that's not the right emotion, but it's literally how I feel. I look at this and I say, my goodness, you've got all these people that took an oath and nobody walks away. Nobody says, you know what, sorry, kids, you're not going to get new toys. Sorry, wife, we're going to move into an apartment. I'm not going to get up. I know that I worked in state government for, 2 years, maybe 3. And I had to get out of there. I couldn't do it. And that was a little swamp in New Jersey. Just imagine the big swamp in D.C. There's certain things that I can't be a party to. And that's why I love this job, because I get to say whatever I feel like, and it's great. But I understand that people have bills to pay. But like Stuart Scheller, the lieutenant colonel that, blasted his superiors for what happened in Afghanistan.
That's
I think
right. This
guy's an American hero. And when it happened, I said, hey, kudos to him. God bless him. But where are the rest of them? Like, why aren't the people that have if they don't stand up, and I'm not faulting anybody, but I'm just saying if they don't stand up, I'm just a voice in the wind, right? I'm a guy on the radio. These people are there within. If I criticize Biden, they're like, so, and you do that every day. But if somebody that's within the establishment comes out like Stuart Scheller did, and yes, they put him in jail. And I get it. Not everybody's willing to take that chance. But ultimately, I think if people on the inside aren't going to stand up or walk away and not be a party to it, and they're going to go ahead and do it. Christopher Wray is one man. But you have all these people that will go ahead and follow an order that they know is not the right order. And again, not going after these people. I'm just questioning why. I feel like I'm missing something here. And it leaves me deflated.
They're afraid. I mean, look at the 2 IRS whistleblowers that came out to highlight what happened with Hunter and Joe Biden, right? Their lives have been turned upside down. Look at Matt Taibbi, who is one of the people who uncovered the Hunter Biden laptop story and all of the Twitter files. his life was turned upside down. You know, this is an administration that goes after their enemy. It's a Marxist administration. You know, Democrats are the ones who claim conservatives are domestic terrorists. They call Republicans a threat to democracy. But you know how we know what they are, because that's what they're accusing us of. So we just have to remember that. Yeah, exactly. And the only way we can do this is to save America is really, we have to shut down the FISA system, number one, and any sort of unwarranted investigations. We need a president who will restore power to the American people in the White House. And finally, we need to dismantle the FBI. One thing that you said earlier, and I don't know if you saw this, but people take an oath of office. There was a school board member who was sworn in today in Central Bucks, so Bucks County, Pennsylvania. It's a bellwether county in one of our target states. Swore in for a school board office, the school board member, on one of the raunchy books that are getting banned in the public schools.
Wow.
That is what she chose to take her oath of office on, is a dirty book that she clearly is advocating to put in our children's schools. Think about that. That's the culture crisis we're dealing with today.
Unreal. There's again, if people don't stand up, and I don't mean violence or anything crazy, but if people don't stand up and speak out, and the reason that woman got a school board seat is because somebody else didn't run and beat her. And that's up to the parents in that neighborhood. And that's what I'm talking about. Everybody's got to do something somehow. Otherwise, we're screwed. Ashley Hayak is a political strategist, and, of course, she's the executive director at America First Works. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about her work with America First Works and get her opinions on some of the clips coming out of the Republican debate, where the number one contender, Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, he's not even there, and he's probably going to win this debate too. Don't go anywhere, folks. It's Ashley Hayak with me, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I'm sick of hearing about these polls, because I remember those polls in November of 2022. They said there was going to be a big red wave. It was going to be monumental, and that crashed and burned. The one place it didn't crash and burn was in the state of Florida. They weren't predicting that I would win the way I did, and I won the greatest Republican victory in the history of the state of Florida. I'm looking forward to Iowa and New Hampshire. The voters are going to be able to speak, and we're going to earn this nomination. And here's what we need. I am sick of Republicans who are not willing to stand up and fight back against what the left is doing to this country. You've got to be willing to stand strong, and you've got to be willing to beat these people. I'm the only one running for president that has beaten these people on issue after issue. We beat the teachers' unions when we did school choice. We beat Fauci on COVID. We beat George Soros when we removed 2 of his radical district attorneys. We beat the Democrats on election integrity. I have delivered results. That's what we need for this country. And you have other candidates up here like Nikki Haley. She caves anytime the left comes after her, anytime the media comes after her. I did a bill in Florida to stop the gender mutilation of minors. It's child abuse and it's wrong. She opposes that bill. She thinks it's fine and the law shouldn't get involved with it. If you're not willing to stand up for the kids, if you're not willing to stand up and say that it is wrong to mutilate these kids, then you're not going to fight for the people back home. I will fight for you and I will win for you.
All right, that is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis defending why his poll numbers are so disappointing in this race. That was his response. Our guest, Ashley Hayak, Executive Director at America First Works. Ashley, what are your thoughts on Governor DeSantis's response?
Well, one of the things that immediately came to mind was as he was talking about some of the things that he was going to do or could do. Those are, I'll give you a couple examples. One example he talked about was tying university funding on student outcomes. Well, guess what? It's a great idea. Texas did it. You're a governor. You could have done it. You didn't do it. Another thing is there seems to be a lot of credit taking for results in Florida. You have an incredible Republican Party in Florida that worked incredibly hard. And the reason that Governor DeSantis is Governor DeSantis is because of a man named Donald Trump. And so I think that speaks volumes. If you ever go to a rally in, say, Miami, holy moly, like the number of Hispanic voters that show up for Donald Trump and support him, the amount of work that has been put to the state by the Trump team is absolutely phenomenal. Now, no doubt, there's been some great policies out of Florida, and that's proven just by the sheer fact that, thousands of Californians are fleeing to places like Texas and Tennessee and Florida. However, how much more money is going to be wasted on candidates that will never become the nominee when we have so much work ahead of us to save the country? That's the question I would like answered.
Well put. And I think Ron DeSantis has done a superb job as governor. And I'm also surprised at how he doesn't poll better than Nikki Haley in this race. I think he brings a lot more to the table than Nikki Haley. Amongst the people that are on the stage there, I think he should be really shining. But he doesn't seem to be able to break out from the crowd. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I remember when he was doing his book tour, people were asking him then about his polling numbers. And he said, well, I'm not a candidate yet. Wait till I'm a candidate. And there was this expectation that his polling numbers were going to skyrocket. I think the big reason is that, obviously, like I said, they didn't. Donald Trump's influence in the Republican Party is significant, especially in mobilizing the conservative base. Trump's backing of Governor DeSantis and his political ascent was significant and really important. And Republicans, especially Republican primary voters, they don't forget that. So I think voters are really nostalgic for the successes that we experienced under Trump, referred to as, Trumponomics. It's very similar right now to a company rehiring a former CEO who steered them through really prosperous times. That familiarity, that proven track record, that's irresistible to voters. So, like I said, the Republican nominee is essentially pre-decided. Trump will be rehired as CEO and will be driving this forward in the next year.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And I did a TV show this weekend on Newsmax, and one of the clips they had was of Hispanic voters, mainly Hispanic and black voters in the Bronx, New York. And it was a man on the street type of interview, and every single person that they interviewed, every last one of them, was for Trump. And it was pretty shocking. Guys in the control room, do we have that audio? So we don't have the audio for you. I emailed it like 6 or 7 hours ago, but maybe we'll have it next time. But ultimately, several voters, they're asked impromptu on the street, what is going on? What do you think about the economy? What do you think about Joe Biden? And whether they're black or Hispanic, they all say, oh, no, F Biden, forget about that. We're not doing that. Bring Trump back. And when I think it's so granular now, like it's down to everybody. And they all said the same thing. We were all making money. Everybody was happier. One woman said, I could spend hundreds of dollars on groceries and I don't barely get what I used to. And ultimately, it's a pocketbook issue. And people are very dissatisfied. And so when you brought up the rallies in Florida and Miami and Hialeah and whatnot, I could see that happening. I could see why there's so much support for Trump and those policies, because things were really better. And right now, lamentably, we're in a situation where Biden's just done a miserable job. Now, Ashley, in about a minute or so before we have to pause, let everybody know about the work that you're doing at America First Works.
Yeah, so America First Works, we are working to advance policies in the states. We believe that America First policies aren't just for a select few, they're for all Americans. They're for working people, Hispanic Americans, Black Americans, Catholics, Christians, everyone we talked about tonight. And so we are really focused on reclaiming what was lost. It's about affirming our commitment to every American. It's about making sure that we put forward the policies that matter and empowering, giving power back to the American people, create a culture of self-governance. We just launched our Pathway to 2025. Former Congressman Lee Zeldin is the chair of our pathway. We are looking for activists to get involved, and it's two ways. Number one, yes, we're going to knock doors and do phone calls to make sure everyone is asked the question, is your life better today than it was 4 years ago? And if it's not, what are you going to do about it? But also, we need to create a culture of keyboard warriors. We need to get the message out digitally. That's what the left does. It's time to step up our game. So AmericaFirstWorks.com. We'd love to have, folks join us and work together to reclaim our country.
Outstanding work that you're doing. Folks, give them a shout on social media and, of course, visit their website as well. It's AmericaFirstWorks.com. Ashley Hayak, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot.
Well, thank you so much. I love joining you.
You bet. All right, folks, there is more to come straight ahead. Your calls and more. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back, amigos. And we go to the phones, 833-482-5537, 833-4-Valdez. Let's go to Taylor, calling from Burlington, Vermont, WVMT. Taylor, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir.
So I just wanted to touch on Ron DeSantis and why his polling numbers aren't doing so well in comparison.
Yeah.
I just believe that all the supporters that would be for him are for Trump, and Trump is not willing to play the political game of being censored and being singled out on stage. They did the same thing to Ron Paul in 2012. I was a Ron Paul delegate in 2012, and I did a documentary on Ron Paul being silenced by the media.
Yeah, but help me understand here, Taylor. Why I don't see how DeSantis is going to have lower numbers if Trump isn't there.
Well, I think he was having lower numbers because all of his supporters, his would-be supporters, are with Trump right now.
Oh, so that would mean he doesn't have those supporters. So do you think that Nikki Haley legitimately has more support in the Republican base than Ron DeSantis?
Like I said, I believe his supporters are with Trump, and Trump's outpolling Haley at this point. And the people on stage see that she's got more support, so they're going after her. And I just think I think the whole process is kind of a dog and pony show. When Ron Paul, they only gave him 90 seconds of speaking time out of a 2-hour debate. So
Gotcha. Well, Taylor, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. From Burlington, Vermont, WVMT. Straight ahead, we continue our discussions this evening. We're going to get into a bunch of interesting things. I want to talk about immigration, the open border, and so much more. Is Biden trying to create like a super highway for illegal immigrants from Guatemala to Texas? We're going to find out straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 2. Our phone number, if you want to join the conversation, our late night national town hall conversation, feel free to call 833-4825-337-8334 Valdez. And former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy has announced that he is resigning from Congress at the end of the year. You also had yesterday his number two man, Patrick McHenry. He also said he was out. And it was interesting that, it's not that interesting, but I'm wondering, where do they go? Where do they go? I'm sure they're going to get really cushy jobs, maybe in TV or elsewhere. But I'm curious to see, McCarthy's not an old man. I'm sure he's got a lot of left in him, like Speaker Boehner. Speaker Boehner ended up in the marijuana industry doing his thing after waiting a little while and becoming a big lobbyist there. So I'm guessing McCarthy does the same thing, and I'm wondering which is his special interest. And if that's, in fact, where he goes. I'm not sure. Maybe he does something else. He's a very capable guy. So curious to see how that goes. Then we have the Republican debate continues. We'll get into a little more analysis on that a little bit later. But there's a story that I wanted to bring to your attention. This is a doozy. Listen to this. 12,000 illegal migrants crossed the southern border in a single day yesterday. The highest total ever, according to sources. This was a brand new record. There was over, 12,000 people that crossed the border. This was information by Customs and Border Patrol and reported by Fox News. That is a massive number. And I'm looking at some of the pictures here. This is not, some people knocking at the door, hey, we're looking for asylum. This is a line of, looks like thousands of people. What I'm seeing, everybody here, these are all in the photo that's in the article. They're all black men, probably between the age of, I don't know, let's say 18 to 25. And there's a couple of, looks like Hispanic men here, or Middle Eastern. And that's it. But this isn't what it used to be, right? You used to see a lot of women and children and whatnot. This line, this convoy of people coming into the country has drastically changed. And I don't know, I'm not saying that one is worse than the other. I'm just saying it's just fascinating. When people start telling you they're putting armies in here, they're sleeper cells, it's easy to say, no, they're not when it's a woman with, 3 little kids in tow. But when you look at this and you see people that are coming through the desert and they've got their faces covered, and it's really interesting. It's like, what is actually going on here? I know you cover your face in the desert, like the Rio Grande there, but I don't know. Just this looks very, very fishy to me. So I want to speak with Lora Ries. She's the Director of Border Security and Immigration at Heritage Foundation. Lora Ries, welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet. So I'd like to talk a little bit about this. Your thoughts on this big stat that's come out of 12,000 people at the border crossing just yesterday.
Yes, and this is on the heels of 3 days of 10,000 illegal aliens encountered in a row, which 10,000 was a new record, and now with 12,000 we've beat it. So unfortunately, President Biden keeps racking up the records, but they're all bad, whether it's illegal alien encounters, whether it's terror watch list hits, whether it is search and rescues that Customs and Border Protection has to conduct at the border, whether it's Americans dying from drug overdose, unaccompanied alien children. They're all new records, and this isn't something the president should be proud of, and yet we're going on 3 years, and he's not changing course.
Now, I'm looking at this article regarding a question, right? And the question is, does Biden want to open the borders all the way up to the southern part of Guatemala? Is this actually something that they're considering?
Well, this has already happened. This was an article that I co-wrote with a colleague where we've had some conversations with Guatemalan officials, and one colleague had a conversation with President Giammattei of Guatemala himself, who said that he requested to the Secretaries of Homeland Security and State Department here in the U.S. that the U.S. government help Guatemala secure its southern border with El Salvador and Honduras. his point was, look, you, the U.S., you have a very large border with Mexico. I have a small southern border. Help me at least secure that one. And the Biden administration said, well, we'll take it under advisement, and then rejected it, and instead proposed spending hundreds of millions of dollars to put in mobile sites throughout Central America, including Guatemala, to basically process illegal immigration throughout Central America. So the Guatemalan officials concluded, look, clearly the Biden administration just wants to keep the Central American borders open as well, to keep this all flowing.
Now, this is alarming, I think, because, I mean, we always speculate whether this is to change the face of the electorate, to add new voters, there's a million different reasons that people have to smuggle more fentanyl, to do X, Y, and Z, human trafficking. The list is so long. But what really would be, from your estimation, the impetus to do something like this?
Well, I think it's a number of things. One, it's ideological. Some are just pure globalists and don't believe that there should be borders. Some, I think, have weaponized mass migration, not just in our hemisphere, but other parts of the world as well. And they pay a lot of dollars into leftist organizations to carry it out. For some, it is political. They just view these populations as either future Democrat voters or numbers to count in the census to create more congressional districts in blue states and to alter the electoral college with those same numbers that are counted in the census. Because right now under the census, it's not just about U.S. citizens for apportionment. It is, everyone is counted. So that includes green card holders, it includes temporary visitors, and it includes illegal aliens. And yet only U.S. citizens can vote in federal elections. So there's a real mismatch there on representation for U.S. citizens, and Americans' voters are diluted because of it. So it's about power.
And ultimately, this power, this quest for power, thirst for power, is, in my opinion, destroying the fabric of our country. We're seeing some of our most resilient cities, like New York City, and then I could see the most. I'm in New York City all the time. It's kind of busting apart at the seams. It cannot take on anymore. I was scrolling through my social media yesterday, and I saw my buddy Curtis Lewa. He had taken some video on the subway because he doesn't drive. He's always on the subway. And he was saying that the subways have become a de facto hotel for migrant men that are just setting up shop, laying across the seats and sleeping and living on the trains. At what point does this become detrimental to their thirst for power? And they realize, wow, we might alienate our base of support if we continue to put them in harm's way.
Happening in pockets, particularly the sanctuary cities where masses are resettling, like New York City and like Chicago, particularly the south side of Chicago. We've actually seen organic protests from residents there saying, stop destroying our city, stop taking our housing, our jobs, our schools, our rec centers from our kids. And unfortunately, a lot of populations in the U.S. have not confronted this, and so they still view this as a Texas problem. It's not a problem for them. And until people encounter this personally, they just go about their lives when, New Yorkers face it every day in walking down the street, downtown, trying to ride the trains, in their schools, etc. Right. So it's affecting a lot of Americans. The drugs are certainly coming everywhere. The crime is coming everywhere. The costs are coming everywhere. But
you have some members of Congress that continue to advocate for this stuff, right? Like Congressman Dan Goldman. Yesterday, he mentioned he blamed the Second Amendment of all things, but he blamed drug cartels and guns for the fact that there's more and more drugs pouring across that you just alluded to. I want you to listen to just a short clip of that hearing. Listen to this.
Now, Mr. Blakeman, you've discussed, as several of you have, the scourge of the fentanyl trade that is going on in our country. And I agree with you. It is really bad. And we've had testimony from actual experts on this over the course of the last year who have made it very clear that the Mexican drug cartels are the ones who control the fentanyl trade at the border. And unfortunately, the Mexican drug cartels have that authority because they possess guns and weapons of war. But unfortunately, those weapons of war come from American manufacturers, not from Mexico or elsewhere. I have introduced a bill called the Disarming Cartels Act, which is designed to curb the exportation of weapons manufactured by American companies to the drug cartels, which fuels the fentanyl trade operation. There's not yet one Republican co-sponsor.
So they want to mask gun control as a war on fentanyl. And it's just crazy to me that they won't address this problem, Lora Ries.
Yeah, he's grasping at straws and reaching for, his tried and true boogeyman of guns. Securing the border would end much of the cartel's business, both the drug trade as well as human trafficking. But the Democrats are simply unwilling to do that. And, going after China, too. The precursor drugs come from China, then they're going sent to Mexico where they're processed and then brought over the border into the U.S. But he realizes fentanyl is a problem, but his target is misguided.
Right. Now, we also have Senator Dick Durbin, who says that undocumented immigrants should be allowed to serve in the military. We're going to listen to that on the way back. Folks, we're on with Lora Ries from the Center for Immigration at Heritage Foundation, and we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
What troubles me about the debate now about the southern border is it is one half of the immigration equation. Yes, we need order at the border. Yes, we need to have changes in the laws that reflect the reality of the overwhelming numbers from all over the world who are coming to our shores and our border. But there is also an incredible demand for legal immigration into this country even now. The presiding officer, my colleague from the state of Illinois, has legislation which addresses one aspect of that. Her bill, and I hope I describe it accurately, says that if you're an undocumented person in this country and you can pass the physical and the required test, background test, the like, you can serve in our military, and if you do it honorably, we will make you citizens of the United States. Do we need that? Do you know what the recruiting numbers are at the Army and the Navy and the Air Force? They can't reach their quotas each month. They can't find enough people to join our military forces. And there are those who are undocumented who want the chance to serve and risk their lives for this country. Should we give them the chance? I think we should.
That's Senator Dick Durbin on the floor of the Senate yesterday with his story about undocumented immigrants should be allowed to serve in the military and given citizenship afterwards. Obviously, I think that's a mistake, and it's crazy talk. Our guest, Lora Ries from the Heritage Foundation, is with us. Lora Ries, what say you?
It's pretty galling for him to say that, as if being in the military is another job Americans won't do, as the left likes to say.
Right.
This after the terrible withdrawal from Afghanistan and our military members needlessly being killed there in the fall of Kabul, after the left forced COVID vaccinations on the military, or they had to be removed from the military. The wokeism that the left has injected into the military, he really should look in the mirror when trying to figure out why recruitment is down for the military. What it's really about is a fast track to citizenship, because our immigration laws allow green card holders who are in the military to apply for naturalization faster than non-service members. And so, yet again, this is about power and trying to get more immigrants to become citizens to vote.
Now, Lora Ries, let everybody know how they could keep up to speed with the wonderful work that you're doing at Heritage and how they could find you on social media.
So they can find my work at heritage.org/immigration, and on Twitter or X, I'm at LORA_RIES.
Outstanding. Well, thank you for obviously the excellent commentary and for the continued work that you do. We appreciate it. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. I wish you a good night.
Thank you very much, Rich.
You're welcome. Thanks, Laura. Now, folks, we're going to continue with your calls and more straight ahead. We're going to also add a little bit of discussion on the Girl Scouts. Apparently, the Girl Scouts, my kids, were Girl Scouts, the younger one for a little longer than the older one. But apparently they've lost their way. And we're going to find out a little bit more about that straight ahead, because it's concerning, right? It's very concerning about the Girl Scouts engaging in something called Foundations in Racial Equity. And I think this is really problematic. And we might be behind the eight ball here where, you tell somebody, why do you think that's problematic, Rich? Talking about racism, why would that be bad? Well, if that were simply the case, that wouldn't be what's going on. To me, it seems like there's a lot more than that going on. It appears to me that there's, this discussion of critical race theory is not ever a discussion about race per se. It's a discussion about how whites are oppressors. Now, I don't happen to be white. I happen to be, by the left standards, brown, right? But ultimately, I wouldn't support anybody saying blacks are oppressors, whites are oppressors, Hispanics are oppressors, Asians are oppressors. I don't believe that you're an oppressor simply because of your race. And my views on this country that we live in, a bunch of white guys from England who defected, right, and fought the king, started this thing. My dad didn't get here until 1955. So listen, I have a different view on this, but we're going to get into that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So, growing up, my brothers and I, we were Boy Scouts. And my brothers, the older they were, the better they were at scouting. The younger me, not so good. Like these guys, they carried that little clear compass in their pocket. I was like, how cool. And I would use it to draw straight lines. It just wasn't my thing. I was that kid. And until today, if it's raining and I'm hanging out with my bros, they'll be like, hey, go chop a log. And I will go to town with that axe and do no type of damage on a log. And he'll be like, no, you got to hit it like this. You got to hit, boom, right there, split it right down the middle. They're just way more outdoorsy than I am. And my brother can start a fire in the rain in seconds. He's really good at it. Me, not so much. That's what hotels are for, right? But my kids also were Girl Scouts. The older one maybe for like 5 minutes. And then the little one, she did it for a couple of years. She liked it. I didn't get past Cub Scouts. I dropped out as a kid and did other things. But she stuck with it for a while. And what's more American than being a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout? It's like apple pie, right? Well, apparently not, or at least not anymore. a former Girl Scouts of America, Girl Scouts USA executive, Patti Garibay. She spent a dozen years there, and she eventually left and founded her own organization. And now it's the largest Christian faith-based scouting organization in the world with over 60,000 members and actively growing. And I want to welcome her to the program to tell us about this move and mainly about what's going on with the introduction of foundations of racial equity in the Girl Scouts. Patti Garibay, welcome.
It's good to be with you, Rich. I hope you're having a great night.
I am. Thank God. I'm with you, and we have a wonderful audience, and what more could I ask for, right? So
That's
tell
right.
us, amen to that. Tell us a little bit about what did something happen where you said, you know what, I'm leaving the Girl Scouts, or was it just, it was time for you to move on and you decided to start your own type of thing? What would that look like for you?
Well, it certainly wasn't something I planned to do, but I felt like it was something I was being called to do. And at the time, I had been leading 3 Girl Scout troops for my 3 different daughters, and I was also a delegate, and so I was very, very involved in the Girl Scouts at the local level. And I started to see some changes, and the primary one that really affected me was in 1993 when they made this announcement over the evening news that the Girl Scout promise was no longer going to include the word God. And as a Christian mom and who had served the Girl Scouts well and whose mom was my leader, and I knew about Juliette Gordon-Low, the foundress, and her daily Bible reading, I thought, what is going on with a Girl Scouting and character development program no longer being based on God? What's going on? So I started to dig in. You think I might know because I was so involved, but it really wasn't that evident to understand what was going on behind the scenes. And what I discovered was really alarming. And so what I did, Rich, instead of cursing the darkness, I thought, let's just sort of light a candle on this issue. Let's raise awareness. Maybe more moms and dads will come around us and say, stop, Girl Scouts. This is a big mistake, kicking God out. That's not, you don't mess with God. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And here they were going into this trajectory, and I realized after about 2 years of fighting the good fight that it was to no avail, that this thing had gotten sour all the way back in the 70s when Betty Friedan had been on their board of trustees, their board of directors, and they continued to honor women like Gloria Steinem and Hillary Clinton and all the progressives that you can imagine. And it had just gotten so stinking bad that I just had to stop, and I just thought I'd start a little club for my daughter, my 3rd daughter, to get her through the formative years. And Rich, here we are, 28 years later. It's crazy, but that's why we're here, I think, for a time such as this.
And that group that you started was American Heritage Girls, the website, AmericanHeritageGirls.org. And, Patti, when I was a kid, and just, from my own observation, every single Boy Scout troop was at a church. So, when you were asked, what troop you were with, most people were like, oh, I'm at St. Brendan's, or, oh, I'm at Holy Innocents, or, whatever. That was the girls' school. But it was, everybody was out of a church. There was no Boy Scout troop or Girl Scout troop that wasn't in my time. This is the early 80s in New York City. And here in New Jersey, where my kids grew up, it was out of the, I think it was out of the Knights of Columbus, the Girl Scouts, or at least most of their events were there. So, or at the school. So it's just interesting to hear what you're saying, that they made this move and it's coming from the 70s. So fast forward to today, right? And now we have them saying that starting next week, the Girl Scouts of America, GSUSA, is going to launch their new 4-part racial equity training, Foundations in Racial Equity. Now, I would support anybody learning more about cultural competency and things like that. But lamentably, when I look at these things, it's usually not some sort of cursory education on why, racism is bad. It's typically more like a lesson in Marxism. And that's not something I think anybody wants to get their kid involved in. So I want to get your take on that when we come back from our break. And I want to invite our callers to dial in if they're interested in joining this part of the conversation. The phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, folks, sound the alarm. The Girl Scouts USA has gone full woke. Now, Girl Scouts USA has taken a new approach to introducing radical Marxist training programs for kids. The organization's set to provide a 4-part radical racial equity training series based on Marxism to volunteers and for parents. And we're going to learn more about the training and how it talks about internalized racism and white supremacy culture with our guest, Patti Garibay. Patti Garibay is the founder of American Heritage Girls. She used to work as an executive for a dozen years with Girl Scouts USA, but she left to start her own organization. Patti Garibay, welcome back. Tell us what is going on with this infusion of wokeism and racial equity that's going on at the Girl Scouts.
Well, you know, I think it's really stemming from, first of all, their agenda. They've always had this kind of a lean, but most recently they received an $84.5 million donation from Mackenzie Scott, who is Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, who really wants to make a change in this country for the progressives, and she believes she can do that through the Girl Scouts. That's the largest individual donation the Girl Scouts have ever received. And in addition to that, the Ford Foundation just a few months ago gave another $500,000 for this very initiative of DEI in the Girl Scouts. And so they're really encouraging girls and their parents, and of course the volunteers, to all be immersed in this indoctrination. As a matter of fact, in the Cleveland area, they have a social justice seeker challenge for Girl Scouts as young as age 5, where they partner with the YWCA. These are always the usual suspects, aren't they? That they will be engaging into sensitive topics, which actually require parental permission slip, and a warning on this parental permission slip about this social justice seeker thing says, make sure that your daughter has an open heart and an open mind, or she will be extremely uncomfortable. That sounds like something a 5-year-old should participate in for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely horrible. And let's talk about, in as much as you know, about the internalized racism and white supremacy culture.
Well, you know, they hired a group called the Paradigm Group, and they're out of North Carolina. And they say that participants in these DEI racial equity workshops, which is what they're mandating the volunteers of Girl Scouts to do now, will interrogate structural racism and its historical construction while reflecting greatly on the way it manifests in our individual experiences, our organizational dynamics, and systemic outcomes. This is wackadoodle. I mean, really, what is the purpose of this in Girl Scouts? Where is the love of country? Where is the love of God? All these things are kicked to the curb. This is not your grandmother's Girl Scouts any longer.
This is really a horrible thing. Honestly, really, really horrible thing. Because it's like every institution that I can think of. You know, I try to be very positive here. But every time I look at something, it's one more thing that the radical left has introduced Marxism into and really, I'm going to say destroyed, but I guess they would say changed. And I think that's a big part of this discussion, is that they feel that they're bringing about a positive change, at least the good majority of them. And then a small minority of them think, all right, we're doing what we want to get the power that we're looking for. And I just don't see how we expect a change or how we get a change unless people actually make this change happen, like moms, like you, the people at the Girl Scouts, to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be here anymore. I'm going to go to your competitor. I'm going to become your competitor. We're not going to accept it. Or for parents to say, you know what, not doing it, not interested. What do you think that's what it's going to take, or do you have another plan of attack to kind of push back on the culture?
Well, there definitely needs to be an awareness brought up. Too often we trust our traditional groups, our traditional organizations that have been around. Like you had mentioned earlier, you are a Boy Scout, albeit not a great one. You admitted that. I loved your humility around that, by the way, Rich. But nonetheless, we can't trust any organization anymore, especially when it comes to kids, that it's like it was created for. They've all been targeted by the left for indoctrination, and because they know, and this is part of the Marxist manifesto, right, is to say this is what we need to do, is to influence the youth so the next generation will be the change agents. And there is no question about what the Girl Scouts are up to. They're spending more money in lobbying, in DEI, in change management, in making changes in this country than they are about instilling moral character in girls, or teaching them life skills, or being in the out of doors, or being good citizens and honoring their country. All of that's been thrown out. It's just become this big lobbying agency, and it's a multi-million-dollar effort. And then next month, guess what? You get to buy cookies to support it.
Right, and they had a whole controversy on cookies as well. That stuff is crazy. Patti Garibay, stand by. We're going to come right back with you to wrap this up, learn a little bit more about American Heritage Girls. Folks, we're on with Patti Garibay, me, Rich Valdez, coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We're on with the founder of American Heritage Girls, Patti Garibay. She was an executive with Girl Scouts of America, Girl Scouts USA, for a dozen years, and she left and founded American Heritage Girls. It's now the largest Christian faith-based scouting organization with over 60,000 members and continuously growing. Patti, let's talk about what you guys do in your group. What are you offering for the people that are saying, you know what, I'm done with the Girl Scouts raising prices on cookies and going woke and teaching about white supremacy, and we're here, and tell us what you're doing.
Well, if you're looking for a group for your girls to really belong to build friendships, to create memories, to be able to understand a framework for adulting, to make them successful as adults, and to be able to be independent, but yet not girl-powered, but rather the power of Christ through the girl. That's what American Heritage Girls is all about. We encourage the girls to understand the love of God, love of family, love of country, love of their community, and serving their community. It's pretty much the apple pie stuff you talked about earlier in your very first session here, is that's what American Heritage Girls is all about. We partner with the church. And so, yes, you will find these troops in churches, in homeschool settings, where they can say, yes, we want to come over and help these girls. And we want to raise up a generation that can really understand that faith is important, leadership is important, social emotional health, outdoor skills, citizenship, and of course, earning badges and goal setting. All of those are important. So think of the best things that you thought of Scouts when you were young or when it was not woke. That's what American Heritage Girls is, and also is Christ-centered. So that's that solid rock, that mission drift that occurred with the other Scout organizations are not going to happen with American Heritage Girls, because of its basis is a solid rock of Jesus Christ. And so it is a lot of fun. Our tagline is faith, service, and fun. We serve biological girls. I have to say that. I have to clarify, since the other groups take, all kinds of kids. Biological girls ages 5 to 18. And we are having a ball doing this. And I'll tell you, the volunteers that come alongside these girls are just amazing people that really want to influence the next generation to really influence the trajectory of our country. This is important stuff and important work.
Well, Patti, I love what you're doing. My girls did actually, through our church, we're a part of a group called the Missionettes, and it was a very similar type of program. It was great for them. They loved it. And I can tell you firsthand, it was wonderful for them, and I'm sure you guys are meeting a similar kind of need that's out there for people that are looking for character development in their kids. And let everybody know the website and how they could, follow you on social media.
Absolutely. Visit our website at AmericanHeritageGirls.org. And when you go to that website, you can check out the red button that says Find a Troop in your area. There are troops all across the United States and even in 16 international countries. And also how to start a troop if you'd like to create a legacy in your community, one that will really serve girls and help them to grow up in the way they should go. You can find out how to start a troop. And also when you go onto that website, we've got some free ebooks that are helping parents all across the country raise up their girl. One's about fear and anxiety, and one's about gender and identity, another about a biblical worldview, and then our most recent that just came out 2 weeks ago is how to talk to your daughters about peace during times of war and conflict. So we're a very relevant organization that is dealing with the tough issues, but teaching them through the biblical worldview lens.
Outstanding. Well, Patti, I want to thank you for being here. It sounds like you're doing amazing work. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. Godspeed to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Rich. It's a pleasure to be with you.
You bet. Have a great holiday. Merry Christmas. Folks, we're going to continue with your calls straight ahead. Open Phone America is coming right up. Time-honored tradition here on this program. Way back when Larry King was the host of this show, he started in 1978. That happens to be the year I was born. And 45 years ago, he started something called Open Phone America, and we're going to do open phones with you guys tonight. And, of course, that was continued by the late, great Jim Bohannon for 3 decades. So I'm looking forward to continuing that tradition tonight with you and your calls and whatever you guys want to talk about. And we always talk about what we talked about on the show, a little bit of a recap, your thoughts on everything we've talked about since the first hour of the program. If you're listening to us on a delay, or if you're the market that you're in carries us a little bit later, you're still welcome to give us a call. 833-482-5337 is the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. And, of course, I always want to plug and thank you. A number of people have left reviews on your through your podcast app for the podcast of this program, Rich Valdez, America at Night. And I think we have a 4.6 star rating out of 5. So I'm grateful to you guys for your generous 5-star reviews. Thank you so much. As well as for This Is America with Rich Valdez, my shorter personal podcast. I thank you for subscribing to those and for listening. And if you ever want to check them out, just go to the website, Rich Valdez, America at night.com. Don't go anywhere. Coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program. It's hour number 3. Our phone number, if you want to join our late-night national town hall conversation, pull up a chair, kick up your feet, give us a call, 833-482-5337. Now, listen, if you're on the road, a cop, a trucker, ambulance driver, anybody that's out on the road, cabbie, Uber, Lyft, rideshare, do not kick up your feet, okay? Keep your hands on the wheel. keep the radio nice and loud so the passengers can hear it and be annoyed by the sound of my voice. But I do want you to participate in the program because this is your show. I'm just kind of like facilitating here. 833-482-5337 is the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. And a bunch of things we're going to get into tonight. We've had some discussion tonight on the Girl Scouts going woke, introducing the concepts of white supremacy and what was the other term they got here? Hold on, bear with me. This is some interesting stuff. White supremacy and internalized, I think that's what there was, internalized racism. How about that? So, and again, I'm not saying that's not a thing. It might be a thing. And it's good to teach your kids to not be hateful, 100%. But I think when you're talking about white supremacy culture, this is not something that I see in the world today. But again, who made me the end-all, be-all of everything, right? A couple of weeks ago, I had a lunch with my lawyer, who is a leftist and an old friend of mine from college. I shouldn't say a leftist, but she's definitely a progressive, left-leaning person. Has many conservative attributes as well, but not like politically conservative, just, conservative in many ways, like family and things like that. But again, very liberal as well and progressive. And, she was making the case that we very much are living today in a world that's oppressed by where white people are our oppressors. And I was saying, well, how is that? I mean, you're a big lawyer. You're of Cuban descent, dark skin, curly hair, and you're in courtrooms with the rest of them. And her response to me was, yeah, I'm in there with a bunch of white judges. And there are times where I enter and approach the table for the lawyers, and they'll ask me, "Excuse me, ma'am, that's only for attorneys." And she says, "I'm wearing a business suit. I've practiced. I've appeared before these judges before." She said, "Some of them are just jerks, and others are really just not used to seeing someone that looks like me be an attorney." And listen, I didn't have a ton I could say. I wasn't going to defend the guy for being a jerk. I said, well, some people are jerks. What do you want me to say? And the reality is, she does go through those things. I guess I've been through things like that as well. There's times where I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, so what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I work in radio and it's really cool." And they're like, "Oh, what type of show?" And I tell them it's a talk show. We talk about, everything that's going on, current events, popular culture, society at large, all sorts of things, the news of the day, the big headlines. And, and every now and again they'll say, "That's cool, it's good." So, and they'll mention something like, "I had a friend that, used to run the board and whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, I've never actually ran a board. I did work as a producer for a while." And they're like, "Oh, what do you do now?" And I go, "Well, I host a show. I'm a broadcaster." And you got to see the look on their face. They're like, "Wow, really? This little bald Puerto Rican dude with a beard?" And that's my presumption. Maybe it's something else that throws them off. Maybe it's not my amazing pipes. I don't know. And I'm kidding, by the way. But yeah, I get that. More often than I would expect to, where people are just like, "Oh, get out of here." If I tell them it's a big show, we're on 305 stations, and our cumulative listening audience is north of 5 million, just under 6 million, and they're like, "Oh, wow, really?" Yeah, and it's just people are shocked. And I don't know if that's a slight on me or just the fact that they're very surprised, or maybe they've never heard of the show. But it's radio. If you're not a radio listener, you may not have heard of the show. But again, I go through those things. That's legitimate to me. And I think the people that are having those conversations with me, I choose to be humble and kind. And there's times where I don't. I could be a jerk. It's very easy for me to be a jerk. It's my preferred speed. But my point is, I realize that that's a thing. And I would never say that I feel oppressed by white people. I look at it the exact opposite way. I'd say, you know what? The majority of my colleagues, when you look at talk radio, and that, let's say, this year I had the honor, it was a phenomenal distinction of being named to this list, the 100 most important radio hosts in America by Talkers Magazine. And humbled by it, honored by it. But when you look at that list, I don't think there was another Hispanic person on there. I don't put that moniker on my website or on my Twitter or anything like that. But I say it to say, if the majority of my colleagues are white, do I see them as oppressors because there aren't many people that are brown? Oh, no, I don't think so. I think there's not a lot of people that are Hispanic or of Americans of Hispanic descent, like I am, that want to be in radio. That's just my contention, because I know a bunch of guys that are my age that I grew up with, and none of them want to be in radio. They have other goals, other aspirations. So that's always been my thought on a situation like that. But yet, here we have the Girl Scouts. The Girl Scouts teaching about internalized racism and white supremacy culture. Now, listen, I think if you're going to teach about being kind, that's good. Tell your kids never to be hateful. Always be kind. That's a great thing. But when you get so specific with it, to say that there are people that have internalized racism or systemic racism, or like my friend was telling me, with a straight face, that she feels oppressed by the whites in the legal system, or even when she was in college. And again, I'm not saying that she's making it up. I think it's legitimate that she felt a certain way in these conversations. I just don't think she went to law school on a scholarship, and it wasn't because she was broke. Her parents owned a home and they made good money. It was an academic scholarship. But that was another point that she brought up. She said, I finished law school on a scholarship, and people always thought it was because I was poor or because I was Hispanic. Not because it was a merit-based academic scholarship and I had the brains to do it. She said, why do you think that is? Because they automatically presumed that because I was brown and have, very tight-knit curls and I wear my hair natural, that somehow I am not as capable of being as intelligent as a white counterpart. And I'm not going to argue with her. I'm pretty sure they did. I'm pretty sure there were people that are like, Joe Biden says it all the time, right? No, the poor kids are just as smart as the white kids. He said that. So clearly there are people that believe that. But I still don't see it as oppression. I just see it as there's people out there that are jerks, and they're going to slight you, and they're not going to view you the way you view yourself. But it's not my job to worry about how so-and-so views me. It's my job to do my job well and let the results speak for themselves. And that's just how I've always conducted my life. So I realize that there's a racial element to life, but I don't feel oppressed by it. If anything, I feel motivated by it. Anyway, we're going to get to your calls. Let's see. Well, we could do it right now. We can at least go to one before we do the break here. Let's go to Kim in Shields, Michigan, WILS. Kim, welcome. What are your thoughts? Well, first, let me ask you, were you a Girl Scout?
Yeah, that was my second topic I wanted to talk about. My sister and I were in Girl Scouts almost all the way through school, and our troop was active. We did a lot. We went to dude ranches. We sold the peanut brittle, the cookies, the calendars. We went to we did a lot of went on canoe trips. And on top of that, my sister and I went to Girl Scout camp for 7 years in a row. So this is really disheartening for me. To hear what they're doing to the Girl Scouts. It all started, I think, with the Boy Scouts when they wanted to force girls into the Boy Scouts. And now it's just all this more bizarre stuff that's happened since Biden's been in. But I do have a glimmer of hope that what your guest said, this American Heritage Girls, which is going to be like Girl Scouts probably used to be, that gives me a glimmer of hope. I hadn't heard about them. And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is your guest.
Well, before you move on to that, I wanted to ask you, did they ever teach you about racism when you were in the Girl Scouts?
Oh no. We built campfires and pitched tents and hiked and swam, and all kinds of, we did a bike trip one time for 25 miles over a weekend. It was all outdoor stuff, all the things your guest was listing. She was saying it's about God and country and learning how to sustain yourself and do things you didn't know how to do. And of course you earn the badges and all that stuff, but, it's the way Girl Scouts used to be, not this cookie stuff they got going on. And just don't buy their cookies. If they're going to be some commie thing, don't buy their junk when they try to sell it, because they're just poisoning the young girls.
All right, I'll take that. Now, tell me about your thoughts on the other topic.
Yeah, your other guest from Heritage was saying that Dick Durbin wants to see a number of these illegals that have come across the border. You say go into the service, and then they can get their citizenship that much quicker. Well, there's a big problem with that. On my shows, somebody's telling these tens of millions of illegals that Biden's let in 3 years, somebody's telling them, and I don't know if it's the NGOs, the coyotes, or the cartel members, but they're telling them to dump their ID, their papers, any identifying information they have on the Mexican side of the river. They went over there with their cameras and showed it on a couple of my shows. They said, see, for some reason, they're all dumping their IDs, and I don't know if that's to hasten them getting sent packing, or what, back to their homeland. I don't know what the reason, but they've all dumped their IDs. I don't know that there's a single one of them that retained their IDs. And so how would we put somebody like that in the military when we don't know who, say, 8 or 10 million of these people are? They have no ID,
Kim, a couple of years back, several years back, there was a move, you have to think like a Democrat, right? Think like a progressive Marxist. So when you realize, like they ultimately realize that the money isn't theirs, right? They might have appropriations committee and they might have, they can design how it's going to be spent and determine how much, but it's not their money, right? They can't literally give it away to everybody. So they have to get creative. And Barack Obama had a plan some years ago. He knew that there was a way that he could help people to become transgender. He didn't know how to pull it off, and they couldn't figure out, how do we subsidize this? Let's do Obamacare, but they gave him a hard way to go with Obamacare. It took him longer than expected, and eventually, lost the mandate and the doctor and this and all that stuff that went down. So what did he do? Well, he decided we're going to allow the military to pay for this through TRICARE. You could come into the military. You won't really have to serve. You just say that you're having, a mental issue, get in, and we'll say that you need to transition. You will transition, and the military will pay for it because it'll be a necessary thing. And a bunch of people started joining the military just to transition, to get their taxpayer-funded sex change. And that's what that was. So now I fast forward to now, and voila, we've got the same thing. You got, the audio we heard earlier of Dick Durbin. He says, well, this is another way to give them a salary. Well, if you come here, and how do we take care of all these people? Can't put everybody on welfare. We got to, do some creative financing somewhere. And it's not like they're all coming here to be on welfare, right? The truth is many people come to this country to work. By and large, they come to work. When I see the largest groups of folks that I'm going to presume are illegal aliens just because of the way they're dressed and the way and where they're hanging out in the parking lot of a big box home improvement store, I'm going to guess that these are migrant day laborers looking for work. And that's what they're doing. They're looking for work. If 1,000 people are coming across from I don't know, Guatemala, I don't think 1,000 people are terrorist cell people or smugglers and traffickers and carrying fentanyl. I'd say the majority of them are trying to work, because I see them here trying to work when you pass by one of these stores. Now, it doesn't mean that there are not amongst them others, and we've talked about those videos and photos that we've seen. But my point here is that this is just another way for Dick Durbin and the Democrats to say, you know what, we're going to put these people, we're going to put them in the military. That's what we'll do. We've already wokeified the military. Now we'll diversify the military. We'll add people from different places across the world. We'll have the most eclectic military ever. And we will, for once and for all, get rid of this white supremacist culture that permeates this I will die and cry for my flag. I will stand every time there's a Pledge of Allegiance. This love for this God-forsaken country, they'll put an end to it once and for all. And there are people that genuinely hate America and that they hate what we stand for, because truly what America stands for, liberty, the idea that there are people in this country that love God, that will put their faith in God above everything else. That doesn't exist in so many other countries where there are no televisions. There's very little internet. There's not a lot of access to new ideas. Just think about the people in North Korea. Think about the people in Cuba before Obama got them some internet. Just think about all these people, and that's real oppression. So ultimately, that's where I think it ends up. I think that's why they're letting them into the military. That, and of course, they want more control over the military, but it's another way to pay them. It's another job they can give out. Kim, thank you for your call. We continue with the rest of your calls straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations, everybody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The immigration system has been broken for decades, and our Department of Homeland Security has been underfunded for years and years. And President Biden has addressed both issues with strength from day one. On the first day of his administration, he presented Congress with legislation to fix our immigration system. And we have submitted to Congress a supplemental funding bill that will resource our department, the heroic Border Patrol agents that you displayed just a few minutes ago, to fund them as they need to address what is an unprecedented level of migration, not only at our southern border, not only in the Western Hemisphere, but throughout the world.
Again, that's Alejandro Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security, the one that's currently making $1 and he keeps getting pseudo-impeached, right? And they keep pulling it off the table. We'll see what happens with that. But he says that Biden has addressed the immigration issue with strength from day one. Is that what you think? Strength from day one? To me, it sounds like they're trying to open up a super highway of illegal aliens from Texas straight to Guatemala. I think that's crazy. Let's go to Edward calling from Tampa, Florida, WWTK. Edward, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Rich, I wanted to bring this up because I think this is something that's going to need some attention. Venezuela is thinking about moving on its neighbor. I didn't even want to try and pronounce it, but it's the one with Jim Jones used to have the
Guyana
party. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, obviously we're getting a lot of illegals from there, and Hezbollah might even have a foothold there. What do you think are the chances of us doing some kind of minor operation? I know John Bolton thought about sending 5,000. Remember that notepad?
Yeah, I think the chances are zero. And I'll tell you why. The easiest thing, we talked about this earlier with Lora Ries, and she made an excellent point. And it's the point I think we're all making. If you want to stem fentanyl, if you want to stop human trafficking, if you want to make America safer, if you want to protect jobs for the people that are currently in the country, what you do is you secure the border. You threaten the cartel. You threaten the governments that are, to where they have to step up to the cartel. We don't need to go and defend Guyana. We don't need to go and do anything anywhere as long as we shut down our border, everything. Hezbollah has no need to be in Guyana if they know that we have a very secure southern border. It makes it harder for them to just waltz right in. But now it's easy. So it makes all the sense in the world. Let's set up shop here. Let's train people here. Maybe we could radicalize a few of the locals since, it's a different bunch here. And let's go for it. I don't think we need to be there. I think we need to be here and at our border. And lamentably, this is not happening. Joe Biden's just letting everybody in. It's an absolute free-for-all. Edward?
Thank you, Rich. Okay.
Yeah, you bet. My pleasure, and great to hear from you, man. Thanks for the call from Tampa, Florida. I'll be in Florida this weekend, going to Palm Beach, and love me some palm trees. Let us continue with our calls. Let's go to Nick. Nick is calling us from WGN area, Chicago. Nick, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. You have a nice show. You always do. And I just want to remind people in Chicago that your rebroadcast, which will be coming up later here, is a fresh show. It's not from the morning world. In today's world, a lot can happen from the morning show rebroadcast. Oh, yeah. But yours is a rebroadcast very soon after you finish on the East Coast. So I was going to say regarding the immigrants, let's get on that. And these, or whatever you want to call them, I'll just call them migrants because there's all kinds of ways we can talk about their description. But these people are here for a reason. I know some of them are genuinely hurting them, but the main reason is these people are going to be to Trump in the next election or any Trump favoring candidate for the Republican Party, what the coronavirus was in election against Trump. They're going to get a lot of IDs, which will be driver's licenses. The driver's license in Illinois here allows you to be registered automatically to vote
from your license.
Yeah, when you're mailed out when you mail out all those ballots, and we had that situation here in the Chicago area. There were doorways of apartment buildings full of ballots that laying around for people who moved and don't live there or whatever, but they're each individually a valid ballot. And the outside is an envelope that when it's mailed in by somebody, I don't know who, would gather them, mail them in. But if some person did that, the inside ballot then that's and there is the actual ballot for whom you're voting. Well, the outside envelope has a signature put on. The inside ballot that they pull out of the envelope at the county place has a signature. They compared the two to make sure they're correct. And I've been talking about looking at Atlanta with a microscope. That what I understand there, after all the people, after the plumbing emergency where everybody was told they got to leave, right away people went who worked there. Just as soon as they locked the door, they went to the table where underneath the draping, they pull out all these boxes and containers with ballots and zoom through them so fast that it's highly unlikely. It's very questionable that they actually were looking closely at the signature.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. Ultimately, you're saying it's easy for them to commit fraud. And from the license and straightforward. Now, listen, if we're counting on people to be honest, certain states are going to have a special license for people that are not citizens. But in many states, you have to prove your citizenship or your residency status, right? I think it's citizenship because you have to show a birth certificate, but maybe not. I don't know. I've never been a resident, so I wouldn't know. And that's why I think that there's such a problem with that part of it, because you don't have to prove anything when you go to vote. And if it's if the standard is all you have to do is have a driver's license, boom, you're in, right? And then when you're talking about the mail-in ballots, you're saying you can put whatever ballot you want inside because the signature part's on the outside of the envelope. Now, that's not every jurisdiction. I know that when I voted by mail one year, absentee, because I was not going to be around, and it was not like that. I had to actually fill out a ballot and put it in a sealed envelope. But outside of that, I know that there are some districts that have this type of system, and it's not ideal. It's not ideal. It's not the type of system we need. So, yeah, with that type of election system that lacks integrity, we need to have a discussion. And I believe every citizen, this is their job. One time I played an audio clip of Carrie Lake when she was running in Arizona. And something that she said really struck me. She said, listen, I don't care if you have to sleep outside the damn ballot box where you deposited your drop-off ballot. You do what you got to do to make sure that gets counted and nobody messes with it. And I said, you know what? That's the kind of energy that we need. You need to maintain that energy in every aspect of this. Every county committee person, every state Republican Party person, everybody. needs to make sure that they're doing absolutely everything. Every lawyer that's working pro bono with these parties, bring those lawsuits. If not, reach out to Liberty Counsel and the rest of them, the ADF and all the rest of these conservative legal groups, so that they can take a look at the case if there is a case that needs to be brought, because we can't do it after the fact. We've got to start now making sure things are right. People have to take this absolutely seriously. Otherwise, I think we'll see a repeat of 2020, where there was so many problems and so many weaknesses in the system. And that's not what anybody wants. Thank you for the call, my brother. I appreciate it. Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of your calls. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I don't think white people worldwide have really reckoned with how much their own personal identity is shaped by constructions of whiteness, and how much that construction of whiteness prevents white people from connecting to humanity. In other words,
now this is very similar to the conversation I had with my lawyer friend. Now, he's suggesting, and again, you heard it, but let me give you what I heard him say. Right? This is Professor Ibram X. Kendi, who wrote the book How to Be an Anti-Racist. He says that white people worldwide, so now he's talking about the guys in Scandinavia, the people in Sweden, the people in Poland, right? White people worldwide have really reckoned with how much their own personal identity is shaped by constructions of whiteness. Now, I don't even know what all of that means, but I understand this to mean that because they're white and there are constructions of whiteness, I'm going to say their likeness, which happens to be white, and how much that construction of whiteness prevents white people from connecting to humanity. So he says, because I'm going to make a simple, I'm going to really oversimplify here and say, you go to the Gap in, I don't know, Oslo, right? Norway, anywhere in Europe. And when you're there, you may or may not see multicultural looking models. You might see a blonde-haired, blue-eyed model, right? Because the chances are in that part of the world, everybody kind of looks like that there, right? So when you have, he's saying that these constructs of whiteness prevent those white people from connecting to humanity. Now, I'm not saying that they're not connecting to humanity. I mean, what state was it? I can't remember right now. But one of the Scandinavian countries, they were bragging about how they had brought down drastically they were like, you know what? We fixed Down syndrome. We have no Down syndrome here. And the way they fixed it was testing. They tested and they said, oh, we think your kid's going to have Down syndrome. And they didn't give the moms options. They aborted every last one of those kids. So no kids with Down syndrome were born. And they took this as a bragging right. This is fantastic. We cracked the code. Iceland, there you go. Iceland was the one that did that. So when you have a situation like that, I would say that that's disconnected from humanity, right? They disconnected from the humanity of the child in the womb and how that child could have a productive, meaningful life to its family just by simply breathing and being alive. but they were separated from that. But were they separated from that part of humanity because of their whiteness? I'm going to venture to say no. It was because of their atheistic nature. It was because of their focus on science rather than on compassion. But ultimately, it had nothing to do with them being white, right? That would be like saying the reason for all the crime in Chicago is because of the constructs of blackness. No, that's not it either. When you personify evil, when you personify things that are bad, you're doing just that. You are bringing about through your personhood things that are bad. So for this guy, Ibram X. Kendi, to say that this is because they're white, he's wrong. Now, there's a little bit left in this cut. I want to play it before we hit the break. Go ahead.
Recognizing that when you recognize that you are part and parcel of humanity, in other words, you're not over humanity, right? It allows you to really be able to connect to people who don't look like you, who have kinky hair, who have dark skin, and to see yourself in them. And it's whiteness that prevents that, right? And when you're not able to see yourself in other human beings, that creates all sorts of problems. But not just societal problems, personal problems that I think hopefully this film and this work will liberate those folks from. So I think it's liberating all the way around, right? I think it will liberate, really all of us because, we've all been told a lie about ourselves and other people.
Now, again, I think this is where he is contorting things, right? I don't disagree with some of what he said, right? He said you need to be able to connect with people who look like you. Yeah, I think so. Just because you are a part of humanity doesn't mean you're over humanity. Sure, I agree with that too. I don't know where he's getting the presumption that somehow because people are white and they are a majority in these countries, because he said all over the world, so I'm presuming he's talking about Europe. Yeah, good luck finding people of color. They're there, but they're not there in large part. It's not like London where there's tons of people of color. You go to a lot of these countries in Europe and there's pockets, but everybody's white. So ultimately, just because they're the majority doesn't mean that they don't recognize black people. I've never experienced that. I don't think that they do that. So to me, he's conflating two arguments here that really just don't make sense. And yes, you do have personal problems. You do have societal problems when you don't see yourself in other people. You know who did that? Hitler. Hitler did that. He didn't see the Jews like he saw other people. He othered them. He made them pigs, animals, subhuman cockroaches, and made it like they should be dead, right? So I agree. You shouldn't do that. That is what Hitler did. So far, Kendi and I are on the same page. But when you say it's because of whiteness, right? No, wrong. It's not because of whiteness, and you don't need to end whiteness to liberate people. That's crazy, Professor Kendi. Coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And with a couple of minutes to go, I want to go to Linda in Albany, New York, WGDJ. Linda, go right ahead quickly.
Thank you, Rich, for taking my call. It suddenly dawned on me recently, as soon as Biden declared open borders, that either the Republican Party or people who really want people to come here legally should have gotten documentaries made and sent to the ambassadors of the different countries to get to people to tell them to come legally and how to properly do it instead of the horrendous things they're going through by being involved with these cartels. Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Linda. Thank you for the call. Big shout out to Albany, New York, WGDJ. Listen, I agree with you. I don't know that Biden's made a formal declaration of an open border. I think he actually says quite the opposite every time, despite that actually happening. All you got to do is just open your eyes, go there, see some of the video, see some of the social media video, which to me is the more telling because it's not edited. It's not selected by any group of editors.